Okay. Okay, so now it's recording. So I think what we can talk about today is how you went from the finance industry to the event industry with you. But first, I can introduce you quite quickly. So you are Martin Ellis. You are the founder of Team Umbrella.
That's me.
It's event company which operates worldwide. And I think before that, you also did many jobs actually before going into the event industry. And but I will let you introduce yourself and complement this if you like.
Okay. Yes, I am Martin Ellis. Yes, I am the founder of Team Umbrella. And yes, we're an events, what's called a MICE agency, which is meetings, incentives, conferences, events. We do other things, team building, for example, when we work globally, based in the UK. So if anyone's looking for an agent, voila. Now, yes, I used to work in finance. I had a fairly varied history of jobs. I won't go through the whole lot because we'd be here until November. But I, for a long time, worked in and around financial roles with some smattering of legal matters and etc., etc. And I also worked internationally, covering the whole of Europe for a large American company. Again, in finance management, specifically in credit management, and that's that particular role. After a while, I ended up working just for me. I was in contract work for different people. I was being brought in to everything from just being an extra body on the floor to setting up whole departments, troubleshooting, etc., etc. During one particular consultancy role where I was working on a corporate acquisition, I was contacted by a family member who has a conference agency, also in the UK, a long-standing conference agency of which I was connected at arm's length, as we say, for a long, long time. And there were some issues in the management of the company, and I was asked to see if I could help, which involved me going along and firing someone and subsequently taking the role of managing director of that company. It was in a very poor state. So over the next, or following nearly 3 years, I helped to strip out some of the issues. I helped to remodel the company, helped to basically restructure a lot of what they did. And at the end of 3 years, we came to a parting of our ways, which is history. I will say for the record, it was not amicable, but I'd found that I'd put a lot of effort into the company and learning the industry inside and out, making a huge number of contacts. And I just thought, you know something? I'd like some of what they didn't do. Their area was not for me. So I set up Team Umbrella to focus on the areas which I felt they were not serving very well. And hence there would be no conflict. But 11 years later, here we are.
Yes.
Well, the story of my life.
Yeah, and actually, I met you through work because I met you in Davos during the World Economic Forum, where you were also working in the organization of events there. And so I remember very well how you were during those days, and I was really amazed by your professionalism and also your calmness in all the chaos. It was amazing. And before going into and dive into the reason that's perhaps got you into the event industry, I would like to perhaps go back a bit to your childhood if you're happy to, or not. No.
We can. Anything you like to ask.
I think it's like, because I know you a little bit, and I was quite amazed by the person you are. And I think by talking also a bit of your childhood, it can also enable us to understand you a bit better, to get your personality a little bit better. And from what I remember, it's also, while you grew up as a highly gifted child and member of the Mensa, which is the high Q society. And this I wanted to ask you, because like, how did you feel, and how did you feel as a child? Like, how was your childhood basically? And did you feel any different from the other people already? Like, what kind of child were you?
I guess you'd have to ask other people, but I think I was a very studious child. I loved to read. I was, from memory, I was mostly happy. I read a lot. I would read a lot of books. I would have a hunger for knowledge.
Yeah.
And it could be about pretty much anything. One of my favorite things was, and still is to this day, sad to say it, anything to do with numbers. I love numbers. I was a mathematical, I think my teacher described me as a prodigy at an early age. That didn't continue through to adulthood, so I'm not the next Einstein, but I was very advanced in what I did. Part of the reason for that was, as a child, I had very bad asthma. So I didn't do a great deal of sports at school. And consequently, when everyone else was running around, I would be sat in a classroom reading a book. That also changed later on. Kind of got through that stage, and my asthma is barely there, shall we say. And I did a lot of sport. But as a child, was I happy? Yes, I was. You know, there are always things in life which you can look back on, but I think we tend to remember the happy memories more than the unhappy ones. I grew up as part of a very loving family. Unfortunately, my father passed away when I was very young, 13 years old, and I think that shaped me a lot. And it came at a time when I'd recently started a new school and things were different there. So my academic side kind of faded somewhat.
Okay.
And it's easy for me to say it's because of the teachers. I didn't like the teachers, but I blame no one. You know, it's I take responsibility for everything, and consequently, I kind of developed, I think, a bit of a thicker skin. So yeah, that was my childhood in a nutshell. I was interested in lots and lots of things. I love to talk to people. I actually love to talk to adults. Because I felt that I could learn more from speaking to people. I could learn a lot from speaking and listening to older people who would share knowledge and information with me. And I do remember, as a young child, we had a neighbour, an old man he'd grown up in the countryside. Fascinating man. He lived a very, dare I say, an ordinary life. He'd worked in the building trade, but he'd grown up at a time when people didn't have cars, you know. So consequently, we used to go on these long walks, and he would show me these old pathways which were overgrown. He'd teach me about the flowers, the trees. He'd talk to me about when he was, you know, when he was a schoolboy, and he'd, you know, used to carve bits of wood with his penknife, things like that. And then we'd go to the pub he used to drink at and meet his old friends, and they would share stories too. And that just fascinated me. Yeah. It's another world for me.
And I think I think why we, like, one of the reasons we get along very well is that we are both highly curious and with a huge thirst for knowledge, and also a huge curiosity for people, for the human beings. And I agree so much with you. I relate so much with you when you say that you were highly in touch with older people. And I think I'm a bit the kind of the same, in the sense that I think we learn so much by talking with people. And I also think that's the reason I wanted to travel as much as I could, and to meet other people from different cultures, from different backgrounds. And also that what pushed me to learn languages. It's because I wanted to connect with people. And
Absolutely.
because when you speak their languages, the connection is so different, and it's much deeper than talking in different languages. Or not.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would add that one of the reasons I think that I love talking to you, I have a great admiration for intelligent people, smart people, and you're a highly intelligent lady. I would also say that another reason that I also have a love of languages and a love of travel. The two are connected, because I think that when you travel, and this, I say this from the perspective of an English person, that quite often it's a great help if you don't need to be fluent in a language, but if you have a handful of phrases, it does three things for you. First of all, it breaks the ice. Secondly, it shows respect. And thirdly, it helps you initiate a conversation. Well, I guess that's breaking the ice. But it does show respect and appreciation that you're in someone else's country, and you don't expect them to speak English, which, again, a vast number of people do speak English, and invariably they'll laugh at my attempts, and then they'll just revert to really good English, which is much better than my French, Italian, Spanish, German, whatever. But I think it's important to make that initial effort, because I'm going to their home. I don't expect them to bend over backwards to accommodate me. You know, it's, again, I keep on using the word, but it's respect. And it's a principle I live by, is that you try and make ground, you know.
And is it like among the reason that pushed you going into the event industry, is it also linked to the love of being around with people and talking with people, and or is there like another specific reason for that?
Yeah, there's a few reasons. One is that I love a challenge, and I see what we do as inherently. My industry colleagues won't like this. What we do is inherently simple. We're facilitators, but to do it well is different. So anyone can put the pieces together. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You can always make it fit the square, but to make it fit the square and look good and do it quickly and seamlessly is a different thing. I do love the interaction with people. I do love foreseeing an issue and resolving it before it's happened. I often speak with clients and explain that they should view us as almost like an insurance policy that they'll never need to use, because before anything goes wrong, we have to make sure we're aware of that and we prevent it. And in the rare instance that something does go wrong, we fix it before anyone notices. But yeah, the side of meeting people is definitely a big part of it for me, because I find that, again, I meet people, I come away from an event, I may have learned 3 new phrases, I may have learned something about proteomics, I may have learned something about the culture in Azerbaijan. But I make sure I've learned something.
What was the most like the most epic event you got to organize?
Oh, that's a really good question. There are many in different ways, but you touched earlier upon Davos, and I was working there with another agency. We were supporting them, that was challenging. But you see, events are epic for different reasons. And in some instances, it can be the people you meet. For example, Geraldine. It could be that, and there were some fascinating people at that particular event. There are other events where what's made it more epic is the feedback. I remember we organised an event in the UK for a client. It was a kickoff event, and some of the people there were not, I wouldn't say they're difficult, but they needed a little bit more attention. And one particular person who we did focus on greatly gave some feedback, which was that she'd been incredibly nervous and hesitant about attending, but the team on the day were so attentive to her that they made everything go easy, and she had a superb time. And we'd calmed her fears, and she actually engaged a lot, and she got so much from the event because all of the worries that she'd had before just melted. Wow. That for me meant a lot more than meeting international stars, meeting people who I may have admired from a distance or had huge respect for. For me, the fact that someone has given that feedback means that we've done our job, and that's what matters.
Yeah. And what are your goals for the future? What would you like to achieve? In every aspect of life.
Survival. Survival is the first one. Immortality would be nice. My immediate goals are to keep growing the business, to use an expression I often like using, to share the love. Yeah. I want to. I'm actually actively now trying to tweak my linguistic abilities a little bit. I'm reading more, kind of. I'm now hooked on audiobooks. So I'm actually digesting a lot more than I would have done before because of time. I hope to travel more, of course. I hope to spend more time with the people who are important to me. What more can I say? I just want to live a happy, healthy life.
And throughout your life, like, have you had like any mantras? Or any favorite mantras?
Yeah, many. I'm a kind of an amateur philosopher. For myself. So, for example, there are 4 things I never do. I never fear. I never worry. I never panic. I never stress.
I can totally say that it is true, because from what I witnessed in Davos, you were always calm and solution-oriented, and it was incredible. You really have like a admirable capability in that aspect. It's so I totally approve what you just said.
Some people think it's because I'm usually unaware of what's happening. But my experience is that if you do any of those 4 things, they're triggered by an obstacle, a hurdle, an issue. You still have to deal with those things, but you're less capable. So my approach is always take a deep breath, step back, look at the bigger picture, and think how best to deal with it, rather than panicking, screaming, shouting at everyone, and bursting into tears or throwing things. None of that works. I'm not an angry person. I'm generally a happy person, and ultimately, life goes on. We just have to deal with the things that are thrown at us. But yeah, I have 1,001 mantras. It's I'm sure I'll come up with another one before this chat finishes.
And I've got another question. Like, if you had any advices for people who wish to switch industry and build their own business in industry that they are not experts in yet, what would it be?
Okay, I guess a couple of things. For some reason, maybe I look old and wise. I don't know, because I'm only one of those things. I get asked for advice from time to time by people who are starting out in business. One of the things I always say to people is, don't be afraid to make a mistake, but don't be afraid to own up to that mistake, and don't make it twice. You know, we learn from mistakes. I heard something really interesting this week, which was, it was a short interview clip I was just watching. I stumbled across it, and it's, never be afraid to ask a stupid question, because a lot of people want to ask that question, but they're afraid to. So be open, ask that stupid question. Invariably, the people answering will think, that's a stupid question. So they'll tell you a lot more than you would have received if you'd asked it from an intelligent perspective. Be brave, don't be set back, don't expect a 9 to 5. Be prepared to be on a downslope before you get on the upslope, and don't be deterred by the inevitable knockbacks, because it'll happen. And another one of my mantras is, I knew we'd fit one in somewhere. The strength of a person isn't measured in what knocks them down. It's how they get back up again, and how they start again, and how they recover from it.
I love that. Exactly, because I think in order to evolve, we have to go through those obstacles, and I think we can measure our strengths by checking how much we are capable of standing up again after this, because they are inevitable, but we can choose to let them run us, or we can choose to challenge them and surpass them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think it was it Mike Tyson who said defeat is not an option. Okay, he lost a few fights, but he also said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Now, metaphorically, that's a very useful thing to imagine, because if you, I look at some people and they have such a tunnel vision, which is good in some ways because they're focused, but actually it shuts out a lot of things they never imagined or they never considered. And you can fall foul of that by neglecting opportunities simply because they don't fall into the original idea you have. So always be prepared to open your mind to something that you may not have considered.
Yeah, and I will add something. It makes me think of a quote from Ray Dalio. I think I heard it when he was actually being interviewed by Tony Robbins, I think. And he said something like, if you want to have an extraordinary life, you need to cross the jungle. I mean, you can stay where you are and have an ordinary life, or you can take the risk and go through this huge and then kind of dangerous jungle and then get an extraordinary life. And I really think that in life, nothing gets like nothing just fall down from the sky and is easy. I really think that the best thing, they are out of our comfort zone, and we need to they will challenge us, but I think they all worth it.
Definitely, and it's the whole risk reward thing, isn't it? It's you measure the risk and you contemplate the reward, and you decide, is the risk worth the potential reward? There are a lot of people out there who are afraid of taking risks, and that's fine. If that works for you, then that's absolutely fine. But you won't get the rewards that come with the potential rewards. And it's a risk. The definition of a risk being that you may lose.
Yeah,
it may not work for you.
Yes, and I think we will end this interview like quite soon. So, is there like anything? Yeah, because I've got a time limitation on my screen. But is there anything you would like to share before ending the interview?
Yes.
Yeah, tell me.
Yes. I often see things on LinkedIn, and one that always makes me smile is people buy from people. And then I try to contact people and they won't take my calls. So you try to meet people, and I think, yeah, I would buy from you if you would speak to me. Or maybe you'd buy from me if you'd speak to me. I think, actually, the one thing I would like to touch on is I see all too often, and I witnessed something this week where people are very keen to blame their lack of success on something or other, but rarely on themselves.
Yeah.
You know, not everyone can be Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. And if you think about it, we'll all have at some point our limit, our peak. We all have a different level to which we can attain. If someone is not getting the promotion they think they deserve, instead of saying, oh, it's because I'm this, I'm that, look inwards, look into yourself and think, actually, am I lacking this approach? Am I lacking that? Is it my approach that's affecting me? Is it my lack of vision? Is it simply I'm not aligned with the person who's looking to promote me? I don't share their ideas and they want someone who does. Rather than saying, and I appreciate this isn't in your case, I often hear it's because I'm female, I'm this race, I'm that.
Yeah, exactly.
In the reality, business owners don't focus on that. A business owner wants their success. And I will happily work with anyone, provided I think that our collaboration will be a success. So I think people need to stop looking to blame anyone else and just move on. Sometimes things won't happen. And my TV, for some reason, has just popped on. Sorry, let me just... It does happen from time to time. Yeah, I think the blame game is not a way forward for anyone. You know, we can all be as successful as we want. Life is as easy as you allow it to be, or as hard as you make it.
Exactly.
Well,
thank you so much. I will end the recording now.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for your time.